Half of us were gone. Everybody you trained with for 2 years, half were gone. We don't know where they are.
An American flag flies at half-mast while a bugle plays in memory of those who fought and those who died on the beaches of Normandy, France 50 years ago.
Heavenly Father, bless our country with freedom, peace, and righteousness.
Veterans gathered at the Harvey D. Morin Post in West Seneca today for a memorial service in honor of World War II servicemen who lost their lives fighting for freedom in Normandy and those D-Day veterans that have since passed away.
I prayed. That's the only thing I can think of. I prayed, and I prayed hard.
Russ Amito of Tonawanda was lucky enough to survive the Allied invasion of France. His unit's battle against the Nazis is still a vivid memory.
Oh, God, there's so many different things that happened, you know. I remember the first night that we hit the beaches, that we had to take up this position. We were bombed and strafed, and it was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. I'd do it all over again if I had to.
Red, white, and blue flowers were placed at this monument in memory of those who gave their all for their country. A gun salute and taps played.
Aim! Forward! Aim! Forward! Present! Arm!
Cheryl Hagan, Channel 2 News, West Seneca.
As the traces were coming up in Ack-Ack, I was just hoping that I would hit the ground on 2 feet, which I did.
The midnight skies over Normandy are suddenly alive with the dark shapes of men who will bring the first fires of D-Day to Fortress Europe.
They were 19, 20 at most, many never before away from their own hometowns. But June 6, 1944, they were falling through the sky. It was night, it was black, they knew not just where they would land. And don't think for a minute they weren't scared.
Fear was my constant companion. But it wasn't that kind of a fear where you would turn and run. Your adrenaline was flowing, you were fighting. You were with the best fighting men in the world.
At 19, it was George McCoy's first combat jump. He landed at St. Mary-Glise.
And when I landed on a hedgerow. I thought I broke my back. Because a hedgerow is just piles of rocks by shrubbery over it, you know, really hard. And I laid there for a while, hoping it would come along and shoot me. I remember laying there, and the gliders came in too. And that was hell for them. There was no big landing fields for them. It was hedgerows. They cracked up, I'd hear the guys screaming, and the machinery cut one guy in half. It was just, there was nothing we could do to help them.
And we came in, it was just hordes of planes and gliders coming in over the beach. And just before we were cut loose, we must have went over some German emplacement because we were peppered with all sorts of anti-aircraft and tracers coming up at us.
Travel all night in the darkness. By morning, half of us were gone.
Well, I picked up these guys. One shoulder was down to the hip. I held his head over this way. He says, "Go ahead, Doc, I saw it." But those are your heroes.
What do you think kept you going?
The same thing that kept everybody going over there. They knew it had to be done.
Many of the memories are faded now, but others are indelible. The strong sense of brotherhood that still exists today, the pride in knowing they opened an entire continent, and the sense of one simple yet extraordinary accomplishment.
I came home.
That was an accomplishment.
I came home.
Carol Kaplan, Channel 2 News.
I stayed alive by being scared, damn scared. I felt this was it. And I saw my life, this was it.
Today, a serene life for Jim Lorette, but 50 years ago today was anything but that for a 19-year-old Ranger. He remembered his buddy talking and trying to lighten up the moment just before they hit the beaches.
And all I could hear him saying is, all right, tickets, tickets, get your tickets to the biggest show on earth, curtain going up any minute now.
On the beach, he tried to move a filled, abandoned ammunition truck just as cannon fire was coming in. He got out of the truck in the nick of time.
And I just lunged. I went flat on my face. And that truck got all blown to hell.
Later, he stared into the face of a teenage enemy soldier.
Here's this one German young guy my own age standing behind the door, scared out of his wits. Well, I dropped my Tommy gun, I dropped the barrel, and I said, you poor beast, you know. And I'm grinning. Well, gee, he brought his rifle butt up and smacked me right across. I spit teeth and bone. And you know, you're young. It doesn't hurt. So I just spit. I said, oh, you.
The soldier became a prisoner of war. That day, the channel was filled with many naval vessels. Some never made it back to port. Young Navy Lieutenant Clayton Obersheimer remembers when he knew the invasion was on for sure.
About a week before that, there was no more shore leave. There was no access to any ports to south of England. Everything was sealed right off, and you knew that something was coming off.
His ship, a sub-chaser, was hit by a German 88 shell 2 miles offshore.
The ship turned over in about 4 minutes. The skipper gave the word to abandon ship. Out of our 60-some people, there was around 18 that lost their lives.
2 men, 2 different circumstances, but 2 men forever bonded by the total experience. Barry Lillis, Channel 2 News.
Once you're a paratrooper, you're always a paratrooper, irrespective of which unit you came with. You all have the one thing in common. You have jumped out of a perfectly good airplane, working normally, and you must be nuts.
I give credit to all those infantrymen that stormed the shores over there.
You need only look into the eyes of veterans like Joe Pollock to know there are some memories too painful to recall.
Because when I came back wounded, I'd never seen so many people laying there dead. That's all I can say.
Pollock joined other veterans of D-Day to kick off the PT Phone Home project at Buffalo's VA Medical Center. Congressman Jack Quinn saw to it that bedside phones were installed in patients' rooms. Together, they placed the first call to Congressman Sonny Montgomery in Normandy.
We're initiating the very first phone call in the PT Phone Home system, and that first phone call is to you, my friend. How are you?
We've had a great trip to honor those fellows that came in on D-Day and those who fought in Europe.
Oh.
You had some buddies jump over here yesterday, Joe.
Yeah, we were there. We had one dummy by the name of Duff that jumped there. He was 78. That was a sad day because we lost a lot of good people.
Inside the USS Little Rock, veterans of the Polish Armed Forces displayed their war mementos, while a memorial was held outside. There were a few moments of silence for those who died in Normandy and acknowledgement of those who survived.
Very emotional for me because I never thought I'm gonna live so long to see the day of freedom for the whole Europe.
For these veterans, the D-Day ceremony brought back memories of the high price the Allies paid for our freedom. Other veterans observed the day quietly.
I wouldn't want these children of ours to go through what we had to. No way.
Colleen Brennan, Channel 2 News, Buffalo.
Who was Charles de Glopper? His relatives remember.
Just a big farm boy. He was 6'7", 245 pounds, and just gentle as could be.
He was a very nice, lovable kid in those days.
But in those days, the Grand Island family could not have imagined this would take Charles away from them.
Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France.
It was just 3 days after D-Day, on June 9th, that Charles de Glopper made his ultimate sacrifice.
There were 30-some men, and they were trapped. And by Charlie going out on the road with his gun, he was hit numerous times, and it allowed his patrol or platoon that he was with to escape. and he gave his life. He went down.
He gave his life to save the boys because he didn't have any, he wasn't married, no children, and he said he wanted the fellas in his platoon to go home to their kids.
A letter awarding a Congressional Medal of Honor to Charles from President Harry Truman tells the story. Charles made a stand, boldly firing at enemy soldiers. Even after bullets hit him, he kept firing and firing, giving the rest of his platoon time to escape.
He knew he was going to be killed because he went right out in the middle of the road with a gun and just shot the Germans.
5 by 7? Okay.
These are Charles de Glopper's surviving relatives. They still live on Grand Island. Did Charles' sacrifice of his own life surprise them?
No, not a bit. Not a bit, because it was Charlie.
He's still a hero, especially to his 82nd Airborne Division. He was their only member to receive a Medal of Honor from the Normandy invasion.
He would be the one that would oversee and take care of all the boys. You know, he wouldn't let anything happen to his boys.
He died when he was almost young enough to be a boy. But Charles de Glopper's legend lives. At this park, Charles de Glopper Park, this Saturday will be Charles de Glopper Memorial Day. On Grand Island and at Falwell, Channel 2 News.
Western New Yorkers were busy keeping the war effort alive, working in aircraft plants like Curtiss-Wright and Bell. Others were simply trying to go about routine life when the news crossed the airwaves.
I remember waking up in the morning at home and hearing them announce that the Allies were invading Normandy.
Everybody was so happy that D-Day had been successful. But it brings back very good memories and also very bad memories for those who lost their lives.
Former Courier Express reporter James Schrader remembers the shock.
Everybody was waiting for it to happen. And when it happened, it was a shock to know that it was really underway. I had the rotten job of keeping track of Buffalo boys who were reported missing in action, or killed in action, or missing in action and presumed dead. When they would come in on the wire, then I'd call up the families, try and get a picture of them to use in the paper. But they never said exactly what the battle was or where it was. You just knew they were gone.
Gone? Maybe. But with an indelible print on us, on our nation, and the history of the world.